Hi, I'm Brian Welk here in TheWrap's virtual Sundance studio for 2022. And today I am talking with the writer and director of When You Finish Saving the World. It's Jesse Eisenberg. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. So this is your feature directorial debut. Tell us why you wanted to make this film as your first foray into directing and why this story.
Yeah, I mean, I never intended to make this into a movie. My background as a writer is in theater. So for the last 12 years or so, I'd be writing and acting in a play every year and a half. And then this story began as like a Audible original novel, so like a audio novel, and then after I finished that, I was looking for my next thing to write and realized there was kind of like an unmined character in that book, which is the character that Julianne plays in this, which is to say that character at her age, because in the book she's a younger woman. Anyway, so when I started kind of conceiving of this story, initially I thought of it as a play, and then I realized it would be impossible to show all the things that I wanted to show, which are the elements that you see in this movie. You see the inner workings of a domestic violence shelter and see how this kind of social service sector works. And you see kind of like, the warmth and complications of the people who work in this kind of shelter. And then I wanted to show this kind of ironic trend in modern culture, which is a kid who plays music online and has 20,000 fans and is incredibly popular, and yet goes to school and no one cares about who this kid is because he's only broadcasting internationally. And at school, he seems like kind of a forgotten loser because he's not interested in geopolitics, which is what the kids at school are interested in. So those two things required this medium to tell the story. So that's why it became a movie.
And it's also very interesting in that the mother and son in this movie just do not gel. And at times it feels like they just don't even very much like each other. They're on completely different wavelengths. And you have characters who make some strange choices. They can be very narcissistic, is a word that is used in the film. And they're hard to even like it sometimes, but you thread some very interesting emotions. What were some of your challenges in that regard, in fleshing out these characters and in making them people we want to spend time with?
I mean, the two leading characters don't see eye to eye, but they're both very similar. They're ambitious and they're well-meaning, and they want to do well in their various pursuits. She runs a domestic violence shelter. She saved thousands of people's lives, and yet she can't connect to her son, who has no interest in social service. It's the kind of, there's something, I think it's like a quote by Chris Rock, who said, I grew up hating rich kids and now I live with them. And, the idea that, she is a woman who has spent her entire life advocating for social justice, and yet the kid she's raised, by virtue of her doing such a good job in her work and being able to kind of ascend to upper middle class life, the kid she's raised is kind of comfortable and not interested in that stuff and interested in just being popular online. And him, by contrast, is genuinely good at what he does. He's a genuinely talented singer. He's just singing about things that she dismisses as shallow. And so so the way you thread the needle, or at least the way I tried to, is by seeing them struggle and seeing them, strive to be great at what they do. And it just so happens that they keep missing each other for various reasons. But because we're seeing them in moments of struggle and privacy, you feel for them.
So it sounds like you had the ironic Gen Zer type more fleshed out for the audiobook. And, I don't know if you would characterize the film as a comedy, but there's definitely some funny moments and really smart writing in this. I got a kick out of him saying "Terra hard" a couple times. I thought that was how did you get his voice down and pin down what that would sound like of this kid who's online all the time and really thinking about a lot of stuff in his life through almost this online currency or of likes and of streams, and in that sense.
This started as like an audio book that and this kid's storyline took place in the year 2032. And so I had just created kind of like a glossary of language that sounds plausible for 10 years from now, so for slang. And so when I was writing this and set it in the present day, I chose some of those words and put them in because I thought this character would be the kind of, this is the kind of kid that's like an early adopter of slang that everybody else kind of rolls their eye at, and, can be funny because there's like such a lack of self-awareness to be an early adopter of slang, but and a kind of brazenness because you're kind of presuming that it'd be okay to use this language. And so that's where his dialogue comes from. There's far more annoying words in the audiobook because it takes place in the future and the kid is just running rampant with a bizarre lexicon that is, kind of annoying to a modern ear.
So yeah, I want to talk about your cast in Finn Wolfhard and Julianne Moore. I mean, let's talk about Finn first. He obviously has his own background as in a band and playing music. But yeah, what did you see in him for Ziggy? I mean, I almost wonder if this is a role that you might have taken, once upon a time.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I would have been cast in a role like this, but I don't think I would have because, Finn, as brilliant as he is, can also play a kind of, unaware. And he does that in a really sweet way in this movie. Finn is obviously a brilliant guy in real life, and yet he plays kind of the fool here. He plays, ignorant and, kind of blissfully unaware of how others see him. And yet he can also plausibly play the kind of rock star version, the kind of character that, theoretically thousands and thousands of people around the world would idolize and draw pictures of and obsess over. And so, yeah, he's able to kind of play those two things so well. I don't think I would have been cast in that role. It was, I didn't really know him prior to writing this. We share the same agent, and my wife, who does all these charity events, knows my agent's roster because she's constantly mining my agent for actors to do her charity events. And so she said, your agent represents Finn Wolfhard, and she showed me a clip of him, and within 2 seconds, I was not only just in love with him, but realized that he's exactly the only person on the planet that could play it this way. And just getting to know him has been wonderful. He's just a brilliant kid. He's about to direct his own movie. He's 18 years old. When I can get over my, envy of him, I am enamored.
And Julianne Moore, obviously, she'd be great in anything, but what made her perfect for the mom and for finding that chemistry or that frosty chemistry with Finn?
Yeah, you put it exactly right. It's a kind of it's a frosty chemistry, and so you're feeling, and so I couldn't have put it better because that's what it is. It's that you feel that there's a kind of that she's not given up on him, but yet has contempt. I mean, to me, she's the greatest actress in the world. Why I think she's appropriate so much for this are, kind of more specific reasons of her being able to kind of play intellectually aloof while also incredibly feeling, playing neurotic while also being, self-confident. And so, poised and unsure. I mean, there's so many kind of mixed and conflicting characteristics that she is able to navigate so beautifully while being believable and comic that make her so singular for this. On top of that, she's like the most unbelievable collaborator. I mean, you write for you write for TheWrap, so this is generally a film savvy audience. So I forgive me for just giving some more kind of specific response, but I think it might be interesting to your audience that, like, in editing, you'll do 5 takes of a scene, but in the 6 months of editing that I spent, we ended up always going back to her first take because she was so prepared and so raw and real and had worked so hard on the nuance of this unusual character that the first take she did in every scene was the best. This speaks probably more to my bad note giving than it does to anything else, because when I, pushed her in a certain direction, it didn't feel exactly right compared to what she instinctively brought to it. So this, I think, speaks to her preparedness and my lack of good feedback.
What were some of your challenges as a director, working with actors, or in crafting the right tone? Yeah, did you have a biggest challenge on this, or something that you'd be looking to work on for a second feature?
Yes, absolutely. I think when I'm acting in a movie, I like nothing more than a director to give me like feedback, and very specific feedback, and emotional feedback as well as technical feedback. I love that as an actor. I love that collaborative process. I feel completely at the whim, at the ready for any kind of feedback and note taking. Yet as a director, I found myself feeling so hesitant to comment on the actors' performances. And that was just a weird, steep, strange learning curve for me. I reminded myself the first week of directing how much I like receiving feedback from a director, and to not feel nervous giving it. That was something that was kind of a struggle for me that I'm still surprised by, because I've been on that side so much. I should have known that they would want that. That's something I wish I kind of figured out earlier.
Who wrote the songs for the film, especially the poem that Finn then turns into a song? Yeah, who did you have a hand in writing the lyrics, or who was behind those?
Yeah. I wrote the music and lyrics and gave them to Emile Mosseri, who told me that my melody sounded like it was from a 1990s show tune. And I said, yeah, of course, that's my musical style. And we all agreed that Emile should rewrite the music, in part because he was nominated for an Academy Award the month that I turned in my worst version. I mean, Emile is one of the great composers working today. I mean, this is his fourth movie. He did Last Black Man in San Francisco and Minari and Kajillionaire. He's a genius with a singular talent and a singular aesthetic. And so Emile rewrote the songs. The bad songs that Finn sings in the movie, I wrote the music for. In the movie, Emile wrote the music for.
Okay. Last question I had, this movie is set in Indiana, and I know you're a fan of the Hoosiers and of IU. I'm a IU alum, but I don't really know why you're an Indiana fan. Yeah, what's your connection to it, and why did you want to set the movie in Indiana?
Oh, wait, did you grow up there?
I went to school in Bloomington for undergrad. Yeah.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
We could talk more offline. Yeah, my wife grew up there, and I love that town so much. So we live there, as much as we can. And it's not a place you see in movies that don't involve sports or racing, and yet is a really special place where the people who have a lot of the people who are cool in Indiana, in Bloomington, Indiana, are the people that are intellectually and socially engaged. And that's why I thought this storyline belongs there. The people I know in Bloomington that are like the coolest people, the hippest people, are the people that work in social service. They're not the people that make the most money. So, to set this movie in Brooklyn, where you'd normally find this kind of, family, just felt wrong to me.
Interesting. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jesse. Really appreciate your time, and congratulations on this film.
Thank you so much for doing the interview. Appreciate it.